Great. Great. So we are live and I see the audience trickling in. I'm just going to do a quick voice test. So those of you who are in the room, if you can let us know the city you're dialing in from. So let us know the city and country you're dialing in from. The chat is now active. You can post the city and the country you're dialing in from. Okay, great. I see Aryan coming in from Pune, India. Keep those responses coming in. We would love to see where our audience is coming from. This also gives time to people whose net is a little so slow. Zoom is reinstalling, so it gives an opportunity for everyone to settle in before we start. I see Praise, who's dialing in from Abuja, Nigeria. Welcome, Praise. Thank you for joining. Great. Keep those responses coming in. We are very curious to know where our audience is coming from for today evening. We have a very interesting session lined up for you. We are going to talk about generative AI today. So a topic which is extremely relevant in today's day and age, where AI is disrupting possibly every leg of the industry and the world that we work in. So let us know the city and the country you're dialing in from. We, of course, have Dr. Balaji Padmanabhan, who's dialed in from Washington, D.C., USA. I see Isaac, who's dialing in from Ghana. Great. So keep those responses coming in. I'm just going to use the next few seconds and keep this open. Hi, Devishal. Let us know where you're coming in from. I see around 220 people who have already dialed into this session. I would love to know where you're coming in from. I see Ajit from Kerala, who's here. I see Satyam, who's come in. Isha from Delhi. Hi, Isha. I see Vijay from Mysore. Devisha from Indore, Madhya Pradesh. Okay, this is going too fast, but keep those coming. It's fun to see where our audience is coming from. So I see Prayagraj, Mumbai, Indore, uh, someone dialing in from Bihar, Vadodara, Gujarat. Great. Satyam again from Indore. I see Mohammed Salmi from KSA. Welcome, Mohammed. We were there in KSA very recently, in fact, just 2 weeks ago, where we did events in Riyadh and Jeddah and brought together many schools, including the University of Maryland, which was a participant. Great. So I see those responses coming in. Let me start with a brief introduction at this point. My name is Sanjay Dhingra. I'm one of the co-founders and the chief operating officer at Seed Global Education. Those of you who have not interacted with us previously, at Seed, we specialize in facilitating such interactions. Our whole model is to give you an opportunity to connect with top universities, top business schools around the world, including North America, and of course, with the University of Maryland, their Robert H. Smith School of Business as well, giving you a chance to connect with the key decision makers, attend similar master classes, collect all the relevant insights, become eligible for exclusive application fee waivers and special scholarships, and then take informed decision on where you want to go and study and pursue your higher studies. Today's masterclass is with the University of Maryland, their Robert H. Smith School of Business. We have Dr. Balaji Padmanabhan, who's a professor of decision, operations, and information technologies at the school. He has a bachelor's degree in computer science from the Indian Institute of Madras in India and a PhD from NYU Stern School of Business, and has worked in the data science, AI, machine learning, and business analytics areas for the past 25 years. So he's truly a pioneer in this space. His work addresses the design of artificial and augmented intelligence solutions that combine data, machine learning, and modeling in the real world through complex system simulations, and has broad applications across business, policy, media, and healthcare. We are also joined by Kelsey Coleman, who is a recruitment manager for the graduate business programs at Maryland's Robert H. Smith School of Business, as I said. She's going to tell us more about their various MS and MBA programs after Dr. Padmanabhan's presentation, and we will also understand about their application fee waivers and exclusive scholarships that they offer through the Seed Global Education $6.5 million plus scholarships fund. Before I hand over the screen to Dr. Padmanabhan, I'm going to run our first poll for today evening. The poll is going to be live on your screen right now. What we are trying to understand from you is which aspect of AI excites you the most. So if you have been tracking the AI domain, you know there's a huge disruption coming into the world because of AI. Uh, Truthfully, over the last 1 year, I've really stopped drafting my emails. AI does it for me. We, of course, get a lot of insights forecast at the tip of a button. So it's become very easy. So we know the world is getting disrupted by AI massively. And I want to understand which aspect of AI particularly excites you the most. The options that you see on the screen are using AI for forecasting and predictions. Option 2 being creative applications like writing, designing, content creation. Option 3 being the automation and boosting of productivity that AI may bring to various industries. Option 4 being enhancing human AI interactions. And option 5 being exploring the ethical side of AI. So these are 5 options that we could collate. Of course, you have other reasons for wanting to, uh, other reasons that excite you about AI. If you have such reasons, you can post them in the chat. We'll be happy to know your other reasons. But if it's one of these options, please select the option and I'll share the results on the screen very shortly. Great. I see 65 people have responded. I'm going to keep this poll open for another 5 seconds. So if you haven't responded, please do respond. We'd love to know what your reasons are about wanting to know more about AI and what excites you the most about it. Great. With that, I'm going to end this poll and share the results on the screen now. One of the most common and the simplest uses of AI, creative applications, which is what I end up using the most of AI as well for. So it's creative applications which excites you the most. For others, it could be about enhancing human AI interaction. So 21% chose that as an option, followed by using AI for forecasting and predictions, automation, boosting productivity, and exploring the ethical side of AI, as well as being some of the options for some other people. Great. With that, Dr. Padmanabhan, I'm going to hand over the screen to you. We are very excited to know about the power of generative AI or understand how predictions can happen through it. And we would love to know more about your masterclass.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Sanjay, and thanks for the opportunity to talk to everyone here. I've been working in this area for a really long time, and in the last maybe couple of years, I've find a lot more global engagements. In the last month, we had talked to people in Nigeria, um, Saudi Arabia, Iraq, India, other parts of Asia and Europe, all about AI in different conversations. And it's amazing how uniform globally the interest in AI is. And there is a sense that there will be some kinds of winners and losers globally. But there's also a sense that this is the right time to understand, invest, get on board, because this is truly, truly a very, very transformational technology in that sense. I loved your poll, Sanjay. I was only marginally disappointed that the one that finished last was ethical side of AI. Uh, but honestly, I think the only reason for that was it was not a multiple option answer. You had to pick one. So still 9% picked ethical over the other one, so that's good. And the reason I bring it up, here is that AI is a thing. It can be used well, and it can also be used badly. The potential for harm with AI is massive as well. And that's where, for instance, understanding the ethical side of AI is exceptionally important. So I'm glad that I think your range of questions captured a lot of interesting things here. Now, there's so much we can talk about, but I'm going to focus today on a part of what we might find interesting here, right? So this is not going to be AI overall, but there are two things I want to just touch on in today's uh, brief presentation, and in the questions, I think we can talk more broadly as well. So my focus here will be primarily on the link between GenAI and forecasting, and I'll tell you why the question came up, and also uh, some of the broader conversations about humans and AI, and I'll give you some thoughts that I have in this space. As Sanjay mentioned, I was very fortunate to be involved in this space really early on. My undergraduate thesis uh, from IIT Madras when I graduated in 93 was on genetic algorithms, which was artificial intelligence then. So AI was search algorithms, 30, 40 years ago. Well, not closer to 30 than 40. And then my PhD was in business, machine learning in business. And so I did a dissertation on AI, machine learning technologies, and algorithms for business applications. And since then, I've been in academia for the last 25 years, working in machine learning and AI, but primarily from a business lens. So recently, uh, since last 2 years ago, I've been at the University of Maryland, and in Washington D.C. There's a lot of interest on the policy side of AI, as you can imagine. There are also many groups that do forecasting. Federal policy groups, they forecast things like near-term GDP, unemployment rates, all kinds of things that matter from a government policy perspective. And they've been doing this for years, forecasting macroeconomic indicators is extremely important for the markets and society. And these groups have been doing it through traditional models. So they have their annual conferences in DC, and a couple of months ago, they had reached out to me saying, one of the questions they were debating on was, generative AI and forecasting, saying, hey, we have to forecast all these economic numbers. Predictive, we know what predictive models in machine learning are, but what about Gen AI? Can Gen AI forecast? And some of them thought yes, some of them thought no. So they, called me, and I thought, this was a very interesting question, because when we think of Gen AI, we think of Chat GPT, right? And we think of interacting with Chat GPT, and Chat GPT has been trained on historical data. And if it's trained on historical data, it can only know the past in a sense. And therefore, I think the knee-jerk reaction is no, generative AI cannot be used for forecasting. It can be used for chatbots and so on, but that's it. Now, the question was interesting because if you it doesn't matter which, if you attend any of my presentations, I always focus on helping the audience think about capabilities. What is under the hood that is creating the magic we see in AI? To me, this is very important because I think only when you understand what's under the hood and what's driving the capabilities will you get an appreciation of what AI can do, and also an understanding of where AI, might fail and where the cracks can come. So I link these with forecasting in a minute. But before we make that connection, this is subjective. Like if you ask different people about saying, hey, look, if you take modern AI and all its capabilities, what are the key ideas that are driving the magic that we see, right, when we interact with ChatGPT and so on? So I'll give you my 5 big things that I think are very important to appreciate. The first is uh, everything in AI is a number. Right? Whether you upload PowerPoint presentations to ChatGPT, whether you upload a video, image, ask 10 questions, end of the day, anything that AI is processing, the algorithm is processing, is a number. And so, one of the most important things is how do you represent anything as a number? And this is where one of the key initial ideas that drove modern AI came from. And Google was really one of the pioneers in this, where they introduced the concept of embeddings. And the idea in embeddings is that you can take anything like a word and map it to a number so that the mapping contains semantic information, right? So think of it as, if I want to map words to numbers, I could map apple to 1 and zebra to 800,000, right? Let's say alphabetically. But the alphabetical mapping is not going to do a good job of saying that, apple and orange are both fruits, because apple might be 1 and orange might be 100,000, right? And so that kind of a mapping doesn't capture the meaning. So Google actually came up with a very creative way to map things to numbers so that similar words have similar numbers. And those ideas have been subsequently extended to converting images into numbers, videos into numbers, PowerPoint files into numbers, and so on. Now, when I say numbers, these are normally vectors, not a single number, but a set of numbers. But that's a very key takeaway, that when we think of the magic of AI, think of it as there's lots of foundational work that went in that learned how to map things into numeric values in a meaningful way. And I'll make connections to forecasting in a minute. The second point, in my view, that drove a lot of modern AI is just training data. As most of you know, a lot of machine learning works well when you have input output pairs of information. One of the biggest early magic when it came to AI was Google Translate. And Google Translate was perhaps the best translation software out there that first came out. And it would pick any sentence in any language and map it to another language. To do this, they needed high quality input output data. And Google came up with a very creative idea, which is, where do you have high quality input output data where the input is sentence in one language and the output is sentence in a different language? Turns out that the United Nations has to translate every document into every language of its member countries. And over decades of work, the United Nations actually translated content into all these languages. And this became an amazing training corpus for Google to then build the initial neural network models that would learn not just the meaning of words through semantic embedding, but to take input output data and to train translate software as well. Third, when we try to learn, humans are very good at ignoring what doesn't matter, right? Or another way of putting it is that we tend to be very good at processing what really matters in sequence. In the context of just text, what this means is that humans are very good at looking quickly at what came before in order to make to understand what's going to come next, right? So, for instance, if you looked at a sentence which said that Mary woke up from a sleep to stare at a blank, how would you fill in the blank? Right now, what matters when humans are filling in the blank, you would not just look at the sentence, Mary woke up from a sleep to look at a blank. You would look at what came before this, right? And the sense is, who is Mary? So in the previous sentences, if it turned out that Mary had something to do with Christianity, right? The reference was a religious reference, then humans would say, you know what? In this sentence, Mary is actually important because Mary, is a very religious reference. So when I say Mary woke up from a sleep to stare at A, and I want to fill in the blank, I might say, spiritual awakening or something like that. But if it turns out that the words that came before show that Mary is just a person, there's nothing special about Mary. It's the previous sentences were about some discussion in a school and so on. So we might say Mary woke up from a sleep to stare at a message on a wall, right, or something like that. And the reason this example is important is that when we try to complete sentences, when we try to do things like this, we are very good at saying what matters, what doesn't matter. And this is what happened in 2017. Google came up with a clever way, algorithmically, for neural network models to also do this, to look at a lot of historical data, to learn which words in sequence need more attention in some context than others. And this was really one of the foundational ideas that drove ChatGPT subsequently. The fourth, when it comes to what's driving the capabilities, is this concept of feedback and learning from feedback. This idea has been around in machine learning for a long time. Humans learn from feedback very well. Little kids, when they learn, how to play cricket, they see the ball thrown at them, they, try to hit it, they miss it. Over time, when this happens again and again and again, they get better at hitting the ball with the bat. Right now, in the brain, there's a lot of repetition and there's a lot of learning from feedback, saying this worked, this didn't work, and all of a sudden, our the physio neuromechanics starts getting better and better with practice. You can do the same thing now with AI, and AI can learn with feedback in simulated worlds particularly well. This was shown in Google DeepMind's work when they built AlphaGo, the game playing AI that beat the world champion a few years ago. The idea that they used was reinforcement learning, but they actually showed how you can make it work in these real life problems where you can create a simulation and AI learns from repetition. Uh, and in fact, if you look at how good reinforcement learning algorithms are, particularly in game playing scenarios or anything that can be modeled as a simulation, I tell my students and anybody else that if any of you are game players at home, you have Xbox or whatever it is that you play with, today, if you beat a computer at a game, it's only because the computer let you beat it, right? That's how good AI is at, and I'm sorry for some of the game players out there, but that's unfortunately the truth. But that's how good AI is because of reinforcement learning ideas. The very last point that I'll bring up here is that a lot of the modern capabilities that AI is able to do comes from highly flexible representations underlying the algorithms itself. In the last few years, graphs and deep neural networks have been able to capture tremendous flexibility in terms of what they can represent. And these types of representations are starting to mirror how the human brain itself is wired. And when you have models that have such flexible representations, it becomes easier to build magic when your underlying representation is very, very flexible. Now, these are the five, like there are more ideas, but if I had to pick five ideas in AI that drove modern capabilities, I would pick these five. And when we look at forecasting, when I was talking to this group that was doing economic forecasting, I was asking them this question, saying, hey, look, once we understand the capabilities of what's driving modern AI, let's ask ourselves, can how do these capabilities translate into the ability to forecast? Now, very simple, right? So given that GenAI can convert anything into numbers, forecasting models use more than numbers? Of course, a lot of forecasting scenarios today have images that get unused because people don't know how to convert images into numbers. But GenAI can make that conversion, and one can build forecasting models that can take images into account. Uh, the interesting part of generative AI is that the input output is viewed in terms of prompt and a response. And so if you have a model behind the scenes, and if you can modify the prompt somehow by providing real-time information, these models can then take your real-time information to construct outputs. And this is another technique that can be used in forecasting because a lot of forecasting models tend to be built on historical data. They're not as good as incorporating real time content. And generative AI models, because of the prompt response framework, allow for bringing in real time information into forecasting. Third is what I had mentioned earlier, the idea of attention. In forecasting, are there scenarios where selective attention is useful, where we forecast based, where we learn to pay attention to certain parts of a sequence? And I'll show you some examples where that's the case. Can we arm twist GenAI models by using reward functions in the reinforcement learning idea and make them forecasting machines? Absolutely, this can be done. And if you train these models so that the rewards come from being able to forecast certain things well, they can potentially become very good as forecasting machines as well. And finally, given that these models today have very, very flexible representations, can forecasting benefit from flexible representations? The answer again is yes, right? So for all of these reasons, and the last one is particularly interesting for some of you who are looking at this from a predictive modeling point of view. One of the unique things about generative AI is the stochasticity of outputs. Now, what this means is that for in traditional machine learning models, uh, for a given input, you will get the same output if you run the machine learning models again. This is normally the case, and this is normally considered desirable. Generative AI models, for the same prompt, they'll give you different responses when you repeat the process. And the reason is that these models have underlying randomness that is built in. And these models honestly would be boring if they gave the same output for the same input, right? The fact that there's a randomness built in is actually a feature in a sense. But from a forecasting point of view, this stochasticity of outputs can also be useful because in financial forecasting, for instance, many times they are interested in scenarios that could play out in the future, right? So when you think of scenarios that could play out in the future, you want to know what are all the things that could possibly happen, right? Along with possibly probabilities. And generative AI models, because they are stochastic in how they create outputs, because of they have built-in randomness, they can actually help in forecasting by creating these scenarios. Now, the very last link here is that many of you hear of agentic AI, and one of the magic, quote unquote, magic behind agentic AI tools is that in addition to building off of generative AI models like Gemini and GPT and so on, these agentic AI tools tend to be exceptionally good if they are provided access to other types of software. So, for instance, if you have traditional predictive models that you may have built in Python or some other modeling framework or even SAS, you can have agentic AI models have access to that in addition to their own internal predictions. Now, all of a sudden, this framework becomes exceptionally powerful because you're not just relying on GenAI to do predictions, but you can rely on GenAI and also give it access to all your other predictive models. And this opens up the possibilities of building highly flexible predictive models using generative AI. Now, very, very briefly, just a few seconds per slide, I'll give you some examples where some of this is playing out. One of the recent applications of flexible neural net models and forecasting was this thing called GraphCast, which is again a Google product, and this has outperformed all other weather forecasting models in the 10-day weather prediction scenario. And the paper is there. I encourage you all to look at it. These two ideas came up in the last few months, like last year, I would say. Uh, for those of you who have seen AI papers and AI models, you're aware of transformers, this neural network architecture that did attention. And in my slide, I had referred to this as the 2017 paper on attention is all you need. A team at Google has extended this to actually do time series forecasting using very similar ideas. If you look at the picture here, it's doing very similar things to what was happening in sentences. In order to predict the next word, selective attention would look at which words in sequence to pay attention to. This model is doing the same thing for time series predictions. In order to predict the next value in a time series, it learns to pay attention to which parts of the time series that came before it tend to matter. And potentially this way, time series prediction models can deal with seasonality much more easily than to build your own model. Now, in many of these examples, if you've noticed, I have mentioned a lot of the key ideas from Google. I'm not getting paid by Google every time I mention their word, but I will tell you that at least when it comes to a lot of what modern AI is capable of doing amongst all the firms out there, I would give enormous credit to Google for doing a lot of foundational work that others have used as well to build these AI models. So I'll skip this because this shows that time series prediction models. It's not just Google who's been trying it, but there are other ones from Amazon, Llama, and so on that are starting to go in this direction. It's still early days yet, but very soon you'll have these models being so exceptionally accurate at time series prediction that we might stop doing traditional time series prediction models. Few months back, this was a paper by the European Central Bank where they did this prompt response idea that I was mentioning. And what they show is that near-term GDP forecasts, but that they call GDP nowcasts, can be improved by integrating traditional models with what ChatGPT is capable of doing. And the way they do this is that they have this text survey of called this PMI, which stands for Purchasing Managers Index. And these are basically a bunch of people, and they provide responses to questions like, what do you see coming up ahead in terms of your own business? And some of them discuss optimistic things, some of them discuss pessimistic things. But by extracting sentiment from this large scale PMI survey, the European Central Bank paper shows that you can actually predict near term GDP slightly better. So, this is a pretty cool idea. It's starting to show that these types of ideas are making it into mainstream work through in countries as well from economic perspective. This is a highly super technical paper that came out recently in finance. The only reason I bring it up here is that one of the links between GenAI and forecasting was the ability of generative AI models to produce multiple outputs for the same inputs. If you remember something I had mentioned a few minutes ago, I'd said, unlike traditional predictive models that give you the same output for the same input, generative AI natively has the ability to give you different outputs if you give it the same input multiple times. In this paper, they actually leverage that concept to build in this notion that forecasting is not all about prediction. It's also about constructing the variance around the prediction. And to do that well, you need to be able to create different scenarios, and they show how these Gen AI ideas can be used for this. So that was the first part, and I'll very, very briefly transition to the human AI connection here, right? But just to wrap up the first part, I feel the answer is we are going into a very interesting time in forecasting itself, where we will slowly start relying on these chat GPT like models that do text conversations with us today, but we'll slowly start relying on these models to also do mainstream predictions of important things that matter to businesses. And once we can do that, if we start linking that with some of the agentic capabilities, the power of these models for businesses is likely to be exceptionally higher than it is today. Transitioning to part two very briefly, and I'll wrap up in 5 minutes. Sanjay, just let me know in case we're out of time. Uh, the human AI part, right? So this is a chart that I work with large businesses. We've done programs for small businesses and so on. This is how I would plot what I'm seeing in the market today. If I had to plot this, the view of AI in terms of how much optimism is there versus how much concern, this is what I see. Like last month, I was at NVIDIA's big AI conference, Anthropic's big AI conference. You go to any of these big tech conferences, there's massive, massive optimism, right? There's tons of laughter, big claims being made. A lot of this is going to pan out, 100%. But you hear a lot of the transformational capabilities of AI, very little worries, right? When you work with large businesses, they are optimistic about what it can do, but they also have challenges when it comes to return on investment and how they will actually get competitive advantage. And this is a question that remains to be answered. They are optimistic, they have concern. Small businesses have had more concerns because of AI. In the past, they've seen others come and compete with them directly. This is starting to change because now we have programs where we are trying to upskill small businesses. It's potentially, this can be transformative to small businesses even more than large businesses, in my view. And I think society, governments can play a very significant role in making this happen. In January, I'm speaking to a group in Chandigarh about this, particularly with respect to the Indian ecosystem. So I hope that I can get some interest going in helping this group. And finally, I think when it comes to people, right? So people are big users of AI, but given the employment scenario and the threat of AI taking jobs, there's a lot of concern that humans have, rightfully so, in my view. So one of the things that on my research side that I've framed is that we can think of human AI conversations as a design question. And what this means is that we have to start thinking about this as how do we build systems that combine the best of humans and the best of AI so that we exploit both of their strengths to create systems that can solve problems of interest to people. So I'm going to skip this in a second, and I'll just, because I know we are a little short of time, someone told me that I shouldn't have a presentation without having something that nobody understands. And this is that slide, right? So this is, some research that I'm working on where mathematically what we're saying is that, the collective intelligence conjecture is stating that for all problems, there's some design where the expected fitness of the best design using humans plus AI is actually better than the expected fitness of the best design using humans alone or AI alone. And if you look at it, the concept is always about then you can frame this as a search for optimal designs, meaning how can I build systems that combine the best of humans and the best of AI, and what would that look like, right? And so as people who are building AI solutions, this is what I talk to firms about as well, that it's not about just bringing AI in to solve problems. It's about thinking of how to build systems that combine what people do And this is not easy. It requires a lot of human creativity to do well. The reason the math becomes interesting is that there are certain things here that draw attention to certain pieces. So in wealth management, if I think about having wealth management advisors use AI, what would fitness be? Right? Is fitness how happy my clients are, or is fitness how much their actual portfolio return is? Right, 3 months from now, and obviously the answer changes. The expectation says that when we look at these designs, on average or in expectation, the human plus AI design will be better than human alone or AI alone. But it's possible that in some specific cases, the human alone design or the AI alone design might be better. We've already seen this in self-driving cars. Self-driving cars have had accidents that have killed people that no human would have done, right? And so there are individual cases where this augmented intelligence scenario or AI alone can actually be very inferior. But time and again, what we see is that on average, in expectation, self-driving is still tends to be safer than humans alone. This is important because we need to accept this reality as we are looking at the design. And when we search for these designs, there's a big difference in greater than or equal to or greater or equal to, because if we find all possible designs and we say that, look, the expected fitness of human plus AI in most cases is only as good as AI, those problems will go towards automation, right? Because the value that humans build and those problems provide to those problems is not as much. And therefore, we might as well relegate those activities entirely to AI and focus on other ones where humans can add value. So I'm going to wrap up, more philosophically at the end. Um, we hear these types of statements when it comes to human plus AI. AI will be better than humans at most tasks and will replace humans. My response to that is always that one of the things that we have to remember is that humans are particularly good at edge cases. And I'll use a very simple example. Most of us might go to doctors, and when you go to a doctor, the doctor gives you some treatment and so on. Chances are 9 times out of 10, when you look at what the doctor is saying, you might say, you know what, I would have said it myself, right? Why do I, there's nothing big that the doctor is doing. Now, if you and I could do the same thing that the doctor does 9 times out of 10, chances are AI trained on massive data can do this 98% of the time. So where does that leave the doctor? Now, it's possible that in a typical week, 15 or 20 minutes, uh, the doctor makes a call that nobody could ever have made, right? But that 15 or 20 minutes in that entire week makes the difference between life and death for a patient. The way I look at it is that the doctor is really being paid for that 15 minutes, right? Now, if you can predict when that 15 minutes will come, you can fire the doctor for the remaining time and hire the doctor just for 15 minutes. But that is impossible, right? And that's what today's pilots do. Right? Today's pilots don't fly planes anymore. They've flown mostly by autopilot, but it's the odd times when the pilot take over control and do things that we hire pilots for. Most of our information jobs are going to go in that direction. And the implication for us as humans is we have to be really good at these edge cases. We have to train ourselves so good in some niche fields that we have the ability to do better at these tough edge cases that we cannot rely on AI for. Uh, Going in this direction, what I tell people is I love Mustafa Suleyman's metaphor. He is the chief AI officer at Microsoft, and he's mentioned this before in his talks that he likes to think of AI down the road as being a superpower in our pockets, right? And that's the metaphor we should build for, rather than thinking of AI as just a productivity enhancing tool or as potentially a tool that can do automation and save costs for businesses. Businesses need to think of AI as potentially a superpower in the pockets of every possible employee, and then proactively try to ask, how do you design AI so that every employee in the firm now has a superpower? In the slide, there are some examples I've given, but I'm not going to go through it. But I think if we embrace that metaphor, we will build stronger AI solutions that bring in humans in a very proactive manner. And that is the future I feel we should design for. At Maryland, we have our Center for AI in Business that's trying to do some of this. We have a lot of cool stuff going on, but happy to talk about this in Q&A. So I know I covered a lot of ground in a short time, and it's evening for you all. One of my strengths as a professor is to put people to sleep. So I hope that has happened for some of you, if in case you didn't pick up anything else. But Sanjay, I'll turn it over to you. And I know Kelsey is going to talk a little bit, but we'll have Q&A that can come later as well.
Great. Thank you, Dr. Padmanabhan, and absolutely didn't put us to sleep. This was very insightful, very amazing. I don't come from a tech background, but this is very informative and insightful for me as well. Those of you who are wondering, this is what's shaping the world of the future. So pay attention. There's a lot to learn from the session. Next up, of course, there are a lot of questions that have come in for you, Dr. Padmanabhan. There are over 20 questions. So we'll get to those shortly. But before we do that, we do want to learn a little bit more about the University of Maryland, the Robert H. Smith School of Business, and the various programs that the school offers. So I want to invite Kelsey Coleman from the recruitment team to talk to us. But before I do that, I quickly want to run our second poll for today evening or afternoon, or morning, depending on the time zone you are. The poll question is live on your screen right now. What aspect of a US study abroad process feels most challenging to you? In case you're looking to pursue your higher studies, you're looking to pursue your master's or an MBA or any program in the US, further, what aspect scares you the most or do you find most challenging? The options being the standardized tests. It could be IELTS, TOEFL, GRE, GMAT, depending on the program. It is the essays and the whole application development that you need to do. Is it the visa process? Or is it choosing the right universities that stumps you the most? So I'm going to keep the poll open for another few seconds. I see around 40 people have responded. We have around 350 people still in this masterclass. So if you haven't responded, my request would be to click on the poll button on your devices and respond to the poll. We would love to know what aspect of the study abroad process that you find most challenging or you require guidance about. I'm going to keep the poll open for another 5 seconds. So if you haven't responded, please do. All right. So I'm going to share the results on the screen now. Almost 50% of our audience find the visa process the most challenging. So getting an admit, getting to the right university is not that big a concern, but the visa process scares them quite a bit. Rest assured, there's help available. There's, of course, help available from the universities. If you have any queries, our team can clarify, help you with those as well. Followed by essays and the applications, followed by choosing the right university or the right program. This is where we, of course, specialize in. So if you need guidance around that, do get in touch with Seed, and we'll be happy to guide you with that as well. And of course, connect with the University of Maryland team to get insights about their programs as well, followed by the standardized test that some programs require. With that, I'm going to stop the poll and hand over the screen to Kelsey. Kelsey, we would love to know more about the Maryland programs and also the eligibility criteria so that some of our students or the candidates today can make it to the program and, of course, study with stalwarts like Dr. Padmanabhan over here. So over to you.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Sanjay, and welcome everyone. And thank you so much for joining. And thank you, Balaji, for the awesome presentation. My name is Kelsey. I am a program manager. I work in the MBA and MS admissions office here at the Robert A. Smith School of Business. I oversee several of our in-person business master's programs, as well as helping navigate our MBA program as well. We do have a couple of online programs too. But for the sake of today's presentation, I'm just going to cover a little bit about who we are as Smith, some of the opportunities that we have. And then if you guys have any questions as it relates to admissions, I'm super happy to answer those questions as well. So I'm actually going to share my screen. Are you guys able to see my screen? Awesome.
Yes, we can now.
Okay, perfect. So this is just a quick little introduction slide of myself. Again, I'm Kelsey. Move on to the next slide. Let me see. All right. So here at University of Maryland is a powerhouse in terms of research. We are known for our research within academics, arts, athletics. These are some of the key features that make our school so renowned. But one of the things that, or a few of the things that I wanted to highlight were our faculty highlights. We have some world-renowned faculty. We have awesome professors, Balaji being one of them. But I do want to highlight that we do have 75 members of the National Academies. We do have 2 Nobel Prize winners. We have 5 Pulitzer Prize winners, 1 Emmy Award winner, and someone who's even won a Tony Award. Again, as I mentioned earlier, the University of Maryland is a huge research school. We've invested $1.2 billion with combined research expenditures. We're ranked number 11 in the United States. And some of our notable alumni include Sergey Brin, who is a Google co-founder, George Dantzig, who is in linear programming, Kevin Plank, if you guys ever wear Under Armour, he actually was a student within here in the business school as well, and walked our halls here in Van Manching Hall, and actually founded Under Armour within our Dingman Center of Entrepreneurship, which is one of the only entrepreneurship hubs within a business school in the country. Also, Carly Fiorina, who is a former CEO of Hewlett Packard. Moving forward, these are just some of our rankings in regard to our programs, in our faculty. Our information systems program has been ranked number 3, according to Best Value Schools. Our Master of Finance program and Masters of Science and Management Studies are also top 10 programs. We've been ranked number 8 as it relates to our faculty. And then again, within our MBA program, we've been ranked within the top 20. Some of the programs that we offer, well, these are actually all the programs that we offered. We have 8 standing business master's programs that do not require work experience. And we also have our full-time MBA program that does require work experience. We have our accounting, business analytics, finance, quantitative finance, supply chain, information systems, and marketing analytics programs. Majority of our programs do require that you have a statistics course within your background and have earned a grade of a B or higher. But we are more than happy to talk to you a little bit more about that. And I'll also include in the chat for those of you who are interested, if you want to schedule a one-on-one consultation with one of our recruiters so that you can learn a little bit more about your specific qualifications for any of the programs you see listed here. We're happy to kind of do a profile review with you. All right. So this is something that I wanted to touch on as well, and Balaji had mentioned it, which is our Center for Artificial Intelligence in Business. This is a pretty much a hub where all of our faculty and students are coming together essentially from across various departments to work on AI research, education, and policy. The Center for Artificial Intelligence in Business emphasizes responsible usage and ethical usage of artificial intelligence. So how are we using that within different infrastructures across different business models, or even not necessarily even business models? How is being utilized within engineering systems or healthcare systems, making sure that it's ethical and again, responsible usage. Pretty much the mission for the Center for Artificial Intelligence in Business is, as it reads here, to facilitate the creation of amazing and safe products and services through intentional AI-enabled design and governance frameworks. So if you're someone who is developing your skill sets within artificial intelligence, this would be an awesome opportunity for you to gain some research experience and kind of contributing to that data and knowledge that's being passed along campus-wide. So why would you want to consider Smith? So Smith, we have a huge focus within artificial intelligence and machine learning across all of our programs. Data analytics is also another concept that is spread amongst all of our programs. We are transitioning into a very AI-centered world in the workforce. We're using a lot of AI chatbots such as like ChatGPT, or the Google AI Center as well, or like, some companies have their own AI chatbots that they use within their internal departments. But you are going to learn how you are going to integrate your skill sets within those infrastructures. So that's something that you will gain insightful knowledge in across all of our programs. It's heavily emphasized, especially within our analytical programs, as well as within our finance programs as well. We do have a pretty decent, if I do say so myself, job placement rate. Between 80 to 100% of our students do find employment within the first 6 months of them graduating from the program. We have an awesome career services department that gives you personal one-to-one coaching. They help you with interview prep, resume building, and interview prep can span from one-on-one interview prep even down to like a group setting where you may have a group interview. Your career coach is someone that's going to assist you in finding jobs that are based off your skill sets. They're going to help you build your portfolios. So when you're in those classes and you're doing those projects, I always encourage students, save your projects, save your research projects in a document, in a folder somewhere, because a lot of employers are now asking for work samples. And a lot of the work that you'll do here at Smith is going to be simulation based. So you can actually have those real world experiences, even through experiential learning projects as well. So you want to save your work in a portfolio somewhere so that you can have that work to show for in the event an employer asks to see it. We do have 70,000 alumni that are located across the globe. We do have some prestigious partnerships with organizations such as the U.S. Department of Defense, the National Institute for Standards and Technology, Lockheed Martin, Capital One. One of the top employers recently with our accounting students was EY, Ernst & Young. We had a little bit over 30 students that went over to New York actually from graduating from that program to work at Ernst & Young. And that's just one of the companies, just to name a few. And then we also have a lot of different campus centers and clubs for students to also be a part of. We have the Smith Masters Student Association, which is titled SMSA. This is an opportunity for students to actually work alongside faculty as well as other departments to kind of give the Smith Master students a robust experience. They plan events from anywhere from taking students out to New York to do experiential learning activities, even hosting career fairs here on campus. That's something that you can be a part of. And also be, the president, or, it's kind of like a student government association, if you want to call it that, where students also coordinate with faculty and things of that nature in helping students best prepare for their next step in career readiness when it's time for everyone to graduate. So moving on into the admissions process, we do offer scholarships. Scholarships are based on a first come, first served basis. Scholarship ranges between $2,500 to $15,000 and is based on a holistic overview of your application. You do not need to submit a separate application to be considered for scholarship amount. Whatever program it is that you're applying to is what's going to be used in evaluating what your scholarship amount will be in the event that you gain admissions. So for example, if I wanted to apply to the supply chain management program and I wanted to be considered for scholarship, all I would do is submit my application for supply chain management, and then whatever, in the event that I get admitted, the admissions committee will then review me again for my scholarship amount that I qualify for, and then I will find my scholarship amount in my admissions letter. I highly advise, for those of you who are interested in applying, we do have our priority scholarship deadline that is coming up, which is January 15th. I highly recommend that you get your application in by this deadline because it does increase your chances in receiving the max amount of scholarship that you qualify for in the event that you're admitted. What that means is if you wait a little bit later, in the event, let's say, for example, you would have got $7,500, but scholarship is offered at a first come, first served basis. You applied a little later, you may only receive $5,000. So the earlier you apply, the better. I cannot emphasize that enough. Also being an international student, when it comes down to you receiving your I-20 form and needing to start your application process, excuse me, for your student F1 visa, you want to start that process a lot sooner rather than later, so that you can get your visa appointments on time, you can have your documentation on time, and you don't have to play the wait game. It does take about 3 to 5 weeks to receive an admissions decision after you've submitted your application. So keep that in mind as well when you are applying. That's why I say the earlier, the better. And March 13th is the final deadline for international applicants. So after March 13th, the application portal will actually be closed, so you won't be able to submit your application. So anywhere between January 15th to March 13th, you're going to want to get your application in. So these are some employers that have recently hired our business masters and MBA international students. Navy Federal Credit Union, JP Morgan, KPMG, Freddie Mac, Apple, Morgan Stanley, TikTok, Hilton, Resnick, Capital One, EY, as I mentioned before. These are just some companies, listing of a few. A lot of students also go into other private sector companies as well. They also, within the career services, are going to help you with internships. So students have also interned at some of these companies that are listed here as well. But again, your career coach is going to assist you in finding those opportunities. All right, so that does conclude my presentation. Thank you all so much for listening. I hope I gave insightful information. If you again have any questions, you're more than welcome to put them in the chat, or you can send us an email directly. But what I'll do is I will put in the chat the link to our consultations so that you can schedule a virtual consultation with one of our recruiters so that you can have a profile review.
Great. Thanks, Kelsey. This was extremely insightful. I'm sure the audience was really happy to know about the various programs at Maryland and the requirements. Uh, I know there were a lot of questions which have come in, but thanks to Dr. Padmanabhan, he's answered a lot of questions in the chat itself. So those of you who want to know his responses to specific questions that were asked, you can skim through the answered questions list on the Q&A box, and you'll be able to see his responses over there. A lot of insights available over there as well. There are some questions which have come up, and I do want to take up some which have already been answered, but which I believe would be relevant to others in this session as well, and they would love to know more. Okay. Kelsey, let me start with a question which had come for you. And again, I think Dr. Padmanabhan has already answered, but it could be relevant for you to answer this as well. This is a question which has come up from Anupriya Kumari, who's looking to apply next year, and she's asking if there's one thing that she should start preparing from now to make a strong application about her candidature of studying at Maryland.
Yeah, very good question. So this is a question, it really depends on the program in which you're applying to. If you are someone that is interested in applying to the finance program or quantitative finance program, you're going to want to really do well on your GRE or GMAT exam, whichever you choose. That is a admissions requirement. For the finance program, you're going to want to score at least a 309 on the GRE or a 639 or better. If you're going to go for quantitative finance, that program is a little bit more competitive. So you're going to want to score on the upper end side a little bit more. So a 317 or better for the GRE exam, and around a 645, 650-ish or better for the GMAT exam. If you are applying to any of our other programs, it's super helpful when you are doing your resume. You're going to want to articulate within your resume if you've done any previous jobs, anything that applies that's applicable to the program in which you're applying, you're going to want to highlight that. You can also highlight any projects that you did within your undergraduate program that you think are applicable to the next program that you're going to be applying for graduate school. You can also include that within your resume. The last thing I would mention is your essay. The essay, it doesn't state this in the application, but it really only needs to be between 300 to 350 words. I wouldn't go past that, but you're going to want to articulate why you're choosing Maryland Smith and why you're applying to the program in which you're applying to. And you're going to want to answer that from a career standpoint. So have it very focused on what your career goals are and how maybe the curriculum or maybe some type of clubs or organizations you're interested in are going to help you reach that goal within the next step of your career. That's one thing that the admissions committee really looks for because, again, as I mentioned, you're going to be paired with a career coach, and we want to make sure we have the appropriate resources to help you within your next step. So it's really helpful if you highlight that within your essay so that we can make a proper judgment of like, hey, this is what Kelsey is looking for. This is where she sees herself going within the next steps. This is why she wants to do the supply chain management program or the finance program. We have the resources to help her.
Super. Thanks for the response, Kelsey. That was very insightful. Uh, I know there are more questions coming up, and I'm going to take a few very shortly, but a quick reminder to our audience. In the chat, I've posted a link to Maryland Smith's exclusive scholarships available through the $6.5 million plus Seed Scholarships Fund. There are 3 exclusive commitments from the school to the fund. So if you're looking to apply to Smith and want to become eligible for these scholarships, you need to visit the web link which I posted in the chat and apply for the scholarships over there. The round 2 deadline was actually 15th of November, but we have extended the deadline till the 7th of December for round 2. There are a lot of candidates who are looking to apply during this time. So December 7th is the last deadline for round 2 applications to the scholarships. Of course, the school application deadline for the program would be different. So check that out separately, but this is the scholarship application deadline. Dr. Padmanabhan, have already answered in the chat, but I do want to take it up because it would be relevant to others as well. Uh, there's a huge discussion around how AI is going to replace humans. We may become redundant with AI doing a majority of work. So, is there a thought process which professionals should take into account when they think about human AI collaboration rather than replacement? This question was asked by Keshav, and of course, a lot of us are worried about losing our jobs because of AI. So, is there a better way to think about it rather than worrying about this replacement?
So this is, I tell people that if you have to be very honest to yourself as to how you will add value in any job. It gets to as simple as that, right? So um, if you are an investment analyst and you're producing reports, right, and your output is the 20-page report that you're producing, if AI can produce the same report that you are producing, because you're doing it by looking at a few places, looking at information, digesting it, summarizing it, and if that's all you're doing, that's bad news, right? Because you're making your job identical to what today's AI capability is. But if you're doing that, and then you're able to go into a meeting with your colleagues and clients and explain the gist of this, and based on the flow of the meetings, you identify the things that people are thinking of, and you're able to answer it and sell the report that you did. Now, your value is not just producing the report, your value is helping people make decisions, right, in real time context to make certain calls. And so we have to train ourselves to be good at making good judgments and good decisions, and not just produce information output. And what does that mean in every job, right? And in different jobs, it's different. Now I teach, right? And a lot of what I do in my class today, AI can do, right? AI can be a great teacher. So my job is at risk. And I should assume that my job, the only thing I do is show up and do the same thing that I did and use the same slides that I did last time. I can be replaced by AI, and students will be better as a result, right? So my job when I go into classrooms is not just teach historically. I try to do as much as I can to bring in real-time information, my own conversations with businesses, people, leaders, things that I'm seeing every day, and I try to translate it and give people my thoughts as well. Right now, AI cannot do that. Right? AI doesn't have the experience I had. AI didn't do the, hasn't done the 30 years of things I had. So I'm able to and that's how I look at it's a very simple example, right? So in your own job, I would ask every single person to ask this question. Be very honest to yourself. And if you're not sure, then build that capabilities, right? Train yourselves, pick up knowledge to say, how can I bring something in that is superior to AI alone? And almost always it will be a combination of knowledge and the ability to make good decisions in uncertain times. So that's what I had mentioned in my thing as the edge cases. We have to train ourselves to be very good at the edge cases.
No, that makes perfect sense. One example which I can talk about is the Industrial Revolution replaced human labor. So a lot of work started happening with technology, but humans adopted to do different things, started managing at a larger scale. So of course, jobs may get replaced, but newer opportunities may open up in the domain of AI as well. Great. I do have a number of questions coming in. I know we are over time, but I do want to take up the last two, three questions from the audience so that it's relevant. This is a question which has come up from Basuntara, who's asking whether it's important, it's necessary for one to learn coding or data skills to work effectively with the AI.
I always think it's a good idea to learn how to do the same things AI is doing. Over time, maybe we'll need to learn less of it as much, but I still think it's a good idea because again, if you have to be good at the edge cases, you need more knowledge about what's happening under the hood. Uh, I look at it in software engineering, right? There's a lot of vibe coding that's going on, and programmers are using AI to generate code and so on. But the most, I was at the Anthropic event last month, and one of their software engineers was saying, they haven't written a single line of code in 6 months. And he was sort of jokingly saying that their only problem is what to do with the free time. Now, that sounds scary if you're in programming, but I can guarantee you the person was not being truthful. And he was being truthful at the same time, right? What he was severely undervaluing was his own ability to evaluate the correctness of the code that AI is generating, right? He is using AI to generate code, but the same person is constantly checking that the AI generated code is correct. And without that, right, it would be extremely risky for the firm to use the code, but he's severely underemphasizing that knowledge, right? The reason I bring it up is if you are a business analytics person and you're using AI to build predictive models, and it's creating a predictive model, ask yourself the question, do you have the ability to verify that the model that was produced is correct? And what skills do you need to know to verify that? Now, if you are confident that you can use AI to create the predictive model and you're able to verify it deeply, you're fine. Now, in order to make that call that you need to verify it properly, I would think that you have to look at the code it comes up with to do the prediction and go over it yourself, understand it, and say, yes, this makes sense. This is exactly what I want to do. Now, you can only do that if you know coding yourself, right? So that's how I would close the loop.
Right. Makes sense. Um, I know there are a lot of questions coming up over here. So, Dr. Padmanabhan, I want to take one last question for you and Kelsey, then one last question for you as well after this. Now, of course, we're hearing about self-driving cars and AI driving a lot of decision making. But is there a framework? And this was a question asked by Keshav, and you mentioned there's a lot of research coming up in the space. So I'm curious to know a little more about this. But is there a framework to decide when humans should intervene or override AI-generated forecasts or decision making? Or how do you decide at what point to stop AI from taking your decisions and start intervening?
So, like long back in the US, there was this NIST report that had a few high-level pointers which on things like, AI should intervene in areas of high risk. AI could intervene at times when it detects the humans are tired, and things like that, right? So we can start building soft signals, right? So to see, so for instance, inside the car, right? It's possible for AI to monitor whether you're paying attention to the road or not, whether you're looking down at your phone. And now it has that information that maybe you're tired, right? You've been driving for 8 hours and you're looking down. And now if there's some object on the way, self-driving can take control and move the car safely, right? So we should start building these cues that AI can look at humans and say, now I should take. And similarly, I think we should have cues the other way around where the humans can look at the problems AI is facing and make a call saying, you know what, this scenario, I don't think AI can be good at because it has not encountered this before. Or there's some nuance here that is very different from what it may have been trained on that I want to then take over, right? So for instance, it's, again, in the self-driving car world, maybe it's, entering an artificially created theme park where things look real, but they're artificial. The humans would say, look, I know that there's an artificial theme park where something looks like a road, but it's not really a road. It's there to show a building. And I don't want the self-driving car to mistakenly think it's a road and go there. I'm going to take over. So these cues that we are going to have to start identifying, I think will help us, figure out how to make that combination. In the, I think, interim, I think a lot of human testing is needed constantly. Like, regardless of who is making the decision, we have to have a non-stop continuous auditing of the past to look at examples and say, did we make the right call? By, in that case was, we had AI do this, humans do this. Did we make the right call? And as we keep looking at the past and keep auditing, we'll start also learning those cues, right? And how to create a system based on intelligent cues.
Super.
Sorry, it was not like a great answer, but
No,
this
no,
is
it
an
was,
ongoing topic.
that's right. And it's a learning process. I know the technology is evolving really fast. So there's a lot of research that needs to be put into it before we can finalize or curate a standard approach to solving these challenges. Uh, Kelsey, there's this question which has come up, and this is a person who is possibly looking to study at Maryland, and she's asking about housing options on campus as well. I think this is a question which has come into the chat by Queeneth, who's looking to understand about accommodation or housing options available to master students at Maryland Smith.
Yes, very good question. So as it relates to housing, our graduate students, they actually stay on off-campus housing. Keep in mind, University of Maryland is located in College Park, and College Park is a college town. So the off-campus housing options, it kind of are just on the outskirts of campus. They like border the campus. But we have an off-campus housing department, which will actually assist students in finding a housing option that's within their budget, within their price range, and their desired location. Housing, there are different options. So some students choose to have roommates, and then some students choose to live on their own. And that's completely up to you. There are some fully furnished housing options as well. Those go rather quickly. Because typically students want to have it fully furnished. I mean, that's ideal. But nonetheless, that's something that the off-campus housing department will assist students with. You can actually start connecting with them as early as March, once you've gained admissions into the program. Now they typically help students find or match students or help students match to where they can live around May, because that's when students are transitioning out of those homes. Like, they're graduating, they're moving on to the next thing. So they'll let you know what's available. And you want to start early with that process too. You don't want to scramble looking for where you're going to stay like a month before you come to campus. You want to have an idea. So again, like, being early is always the best policy. It's less stressful. It's also really helpful for you to get an idea of what your next step may be. In terms of pricing for housing, if you have a roommate, I've heard from students it's ranged anywhere between $700 a month to 15 or 1800 if you live on your own. So it really varies depending upon the building, the location, and things of that nature. But again, off-campus housing will assist you with that.
Great. we are 15 minutes over time, so I do want to wrap up, but I know a lot of questions are still coming in, and especially these are questions which are coming around profile and eligibility. So I know there's a question which has been asked by Praise. There's a question about from ISEC as well, who's looking to understand about the various programs, and more and more such similar questions which have come in. So what I've done is Kelsey had shared this link with us earlier, but I posted it in the chat for everyone now. This is a link to schedule one-on-one conversation consultation with a recruiter at the Smith School of Business. So you can connect with Kelsey or her team members to discuss your qualifications and your fit with the program of interest that you may have at Maryland. So do make the most of this opportunity. You can schedule a one-on-one consultation with their team and get feedback on your fit, profile, and eligibility for certain programs. So please do that. With that, at this 15-minute overtime, I want to wrap up this session. I want to thank Dr. Padmanabhan firstly for doing this insightful masterclass for us. The topic was extremely relevant, insightful. Some of you requested for his slides. The recording of this session is going to be available on Seats YouTube channel by tomorrow. You will get a WhatsApp message from our end through which you can access this recording, or you can go follow us on YouTube at Seed Global Education, and we'll get the link to the recording, or the recording would be available over there by tomorrow, so you can watch it in the future as well. I also want to thank Kelsey for doing this interaction about the various programs at the school and the various eligibility and the requirements that the programs have. And lastly, I want to thank our audience today for being patient with us and sticking along with us till the very end of the session. There are around 200 people still in this room. So thank you for being over here with us. It's been a pleasure hosting all of you. I wish you all the best for your programs, and thank you to both of you for participating in this interaction. Thank you, Dr. Padmanabhan, and thank you, Kelsey, for doing this.
Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much, Sanjay, for having us, and amazing the work you're doing, and lovely to hear what Seed is doing. So best wishes to you. Look forward to meeting you as well in Mumbai. And thanks to everyone who joined today, wherever in the world you are. Hopefully our paths will cross someday in the future.
Yes, thank you all so much. It was an absolute pleasure. Thank you for having us, Sanjay.
Same here. You have a great day, all of you.
Thank you.
Bye.